What's up, good people? So tonight we're going for three different shots of the moon. One is going to be an overexposed shot. One is going to be a mid exposure, meaning perfect exposure, and one is going to be underexposed. The reason I'm doing this is because of the fact when you have those three variables of the moon, is looking at how it looks and how much light the moon actually emits. Some photographers are intimidated by night photography because they thrive on having light. What you have to understand is the moon has its own illumination, just like the stars have their own illumination. And you as a photographer can actually, I'm not gonna say manipulate light because you can't. Light is dark, right? It's the absence of light. So when you use the moon for what it can be used for in night photography, you can then understand how to expose your surroundings. Sometimes to underexpose is also a better way of capturing the light. Sometimes to overexpose is a better way to capture the light. And sometimes the perfect exposure is a better way to capture the light. What we're doing is just testing those three theories. Right now, I have a little bit of an overcast on the moon, but it's getting ready to poke its head out. And so I'm going to do that. Now, let me explain this while I'm getting ready to do that. Right here, I have a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. This 70 to 200 millimeter lens is a Sony G Master 2. It's the G Master 2 version of the 70 to 200 millimeter. It's an f2.8. So basically meaning of this, the widest aperture is f2.8. The longest millimeter on it is 200. The shortest is 70. I also have on the bottom here a 2x teleconverter, meaning my aperture, although it is 2.8, because I have a 2x teleconverter, it closes my aperture just a bit to 5.6. So 2x, meaning 2.8 times 2, give us 5.6. So meaning at 70 millimeters focal point, it's actually 140 millimeters. So meaning from the point, the tip of the lens here to whatever it's pointed to is 140 millimeters. It can see outward to that. Also, it means that at 200 millimeters, what I have it set at right now, and the moon is peeking out to us, at 200 millimeters, it can see at 400 millimeters with the 2x teleconverter. That doesn't bother me. So all I'm gonna do tonight, I'm gonna keep my ISO at 100 because I want my shot to look pretty clean. And all I'm gonna do is mess with the shutter speed. So I'm gonna make my shutter speed either take a longer exposure in order to overexpose the moon, a perfect exposure in order to have the moon look sharp pretty much right out of camera. And then I'm gonna do an underexposure to really show you the details of the moon and how not to be intimidated by shooting an underexposed shot at night. So let's do our thing. So first things first, let's line up this shot. And I do want to mention that I do have my multimetering at center. So basically on my camera, which is a Sony A7R-V, I can point my camera at what I want it to focus on. I can tap it to make it, that is the focal point, right? And what I'm doing right now is lining up almost perfect middle, and I want the moon to be the focus point. And I focus, right? So I have it on single shot focus. I want to overexpose by, let's say 1.7. So at 1.7, it's at f5.6 at 100 ISO and at a 5-second shutter. So I'm going to press my shutter here, and it's going to take a 5-second exposure of that shot. That 5-second exposure means that the lens, the camera, the eye is looking at that. It has it open. The shutter, the camera, is writing to itself what it sees for 5 seconds. It's capturing whatever it can see for 5 seconds. It writes it to the camera, then writes it to the memory card, and that's what you see as your final exposure. All right. So this is shot one. Now for shot number two, we're gonna do a perfect exposure. Perfect exposure in a camera means a multimetering factor of 0.0. So I'm moving my shutter up into that exposure says it is perfectly exposed. And right now it's showing 1/50, 5.6, f5.6, and at an exposure, Lord have mercy, ISO of 100. Let's take that exposure right there. Boom. Quick shot, straight look, because it's 1/50th of a second. Now I'm gonna purposely underexpose the next one, but let's take a look at the perfectly exposed one. All right, now, when I say overexpose, what I wanna expose this moon to is a perfect negative 2.0. Right now it's showing a negative 2.0, it's flashing. I don't want it to flash. I want it to be a negative 2.0 to the dot, so that puts me at, hold on, perfect. So I'm 1/125 shutter, 5.6 f5.6 with an ISO of 100. Let's take this exposure. All right. Now, Let's take a look at that. Now, as you can see in the raw files, when you look at them as they are raw, I did not edit them. This next clip, I'm gonna show you the exposures, and then I'm gonna show them edited to show you, even in the post-processing world, you can manipulate your exposure when it's a raw file to do what you want. But keep this in mind for those of you out there who are photographers who may not want to fool around with raw footage and you just want to do JPEG footage. When you're pointing at something that's illuminated as the moon or even the sun, it's okay to underexpose it to really bring it out. Why? Because your camera is meant to take in light. It's meant to take in light and take in whatever it can see through the lens, right? And then it writes that to itself. It writes that to a sensor. And the only way sometimes that you can do that is to underexpose. Just like right now, this is probably at I have it set at auto exposure because I know I'm going to have a light on me, and I know I want it to be focused on me. It's focused right on my face. So if I move this way, it'll move with me. If I move this way, it'll move with me. But I have that light behind me, right? That is not compensating for. So that light is going to give off a star effect. Now, in post-processing, I probably could do some with that light, turn my highlights down, stuff like that. But I just want you to understand one thing, and one thing for sure, is that when you go to take your final exposures, when you take your exposures with your pictures, with your camera, keep in mind that you, the operator, don't control the environment. You get to expose the environment to people through your lens and through your eye. Let's take a final look at the final exposures here, fully edited and post-processing. Remember, first, all you saw was the raws. Now you get to see the ones in final process. Peace. Till next time.